Please join me in a spirit of meditation and prayer. May we discover through pain and torment the strength to live with grace and humor. May we discover through doubt and anguish the strength to live with dignity and holiness. May we discover through suffering and fear the strength to move toward healing. May it come to pass that we be restored to health and to vigor. May life grant us a wellness of body, spirit, and mind. And if this cannot be so, may we find this transformation and passage, moments of meeting, opportunities for love, and the deep and gracious calm that comes when we allow ourselves to move on. The words of Rabbi Rami M. Shapiro. Now we'll hold silence for a time. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Well, Jim introduced me. I'll just have a few words of introduction here of myself. I've been a UU community minister since 2004, and I'm affiliated with Mission Peak UU congregation in Fremont, California. And my ministry focuses on mental health issues. I am the assistant director of a peer support organization. I'm the board president of the UU Mental Health Network, and I'm part of the Equal Access Disability Organization Leadership Circle and the UU Addictions Ministry team. So I'll start with some stories here. There was a woman in UU congregation who told me this story. She and her husband were trying very hard to support their daughter who had been recently hospitalized in a psychiatric ward of a hospital. And they both worked, and they were rushing there every evening after work to give her support and let her know that they cared about her. Then one day, they got a phone call from someone in church, and they told them that there's this other person in church who had just been hospitalized, and people were bringing casseroles over to the people's house to help out with meals, help the family out with meals while we're trying to support their family member in the hospital. And could you please bring a casserole to this other people's house? And they tried really hard. They made a casserole. They ran over and gave it to the other family. And then they went back to get to the hospital in time to see their daughter in the evening. And there's some time during the evening, the woman told me, she thought, wait a minute, our family has someone in the hospital too, and no one's bringing casseroles over to our house. Is there a double standard here? And the answer is yes, there is a double standard. Sometimes people who have been hospitalized for mental health problems are either because their family doesn't want anyone to know, or because people just aren't comfortable helping or whatever, they don't get help like any other illness, someone with another kind of illness. And it's probably true for this also for families where there's someone who's gone into rehab. So my message here is, for the day, is that we have to stop this no casserole disease. There needs to be understanding that these people are suffering too, and their families, and they need help as well. So talk a little bit about mental health. Some of you may have already know some of this. 1 in 5 American adults each year are diagnosed with a mental health problem. And also, out of those people, nearly half coexist with addiction. And this has been worse in the pandemic. I've now heard that's 1 in 4 rather than 1 in 5. So any Sunday or any Zoom Sunday, the pews or the Zoom screens are filled with people living with mental health problems and their loved ones, and many of them are suffering silently. So it gives just a few definitions of what mental health and mental disorder are. This is from the American Psychiatric Association. Mental health is defined as the successful performance of mental health function, resulting in productive activities, fulfilling relationships with other people, and the ability to adapt, to change, and cope with adversity. And a mental disorder, the clinical definition is a behavioral syndrome creating impairment or distress in thinking, mood, or behavior that has been diagnosed by a mental health professional. So, and another really important concept to get down is that you aren't only either mentally healthy or mentally ill. It's a continuum, and people throughout their lives are living on the continuum and sometimes going back and forth depending on what happens in their lives. So what does it mean to recover from a mental health problem? Mental health recovery is a process of change in which people improve their mental health and wellness. They live in self-directed life and they strive to live their full potential. And I want you to know that it's not necessarily the absence of symptoms or the absence of a need for medications. It's a process of how you be able to live your self-directed life and up to your full potential. Okay, where we go here? Okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. The picture there is a picture of me 42 years ago when my daughter was born. I had a severe postpartum depression and I was hospitalized as a result of it because I was suicidal. I had a feeling like I felt like I was a damaged human being, and it was a very traumatic experience for me to be in the hospital. I didn't want to be anything like these kind of people that were in the hospital. And I felt that way for many years. When my daughter was about 8 years old, even though I was able to have all the advantages, I had a loving family, a beautiful little girl, a good job, a wonderful home, no money problems, a great psychiatric support, all of that. And yet I was miserable all the time. And I told my doctor finally, after years of this, that I didn't want to live my life like this anymore. So he and I embarked on a regular process of psychotherapy, and we really tried to understand what is it that's going on here. And one of the things he asked me during this process was, what are you doing for yourself spiritually? And I said nothing, because at the time I wasn't doing anything. I'd been brought up in a interdenominational Protestant home and went to church and youth group and stuff, but since college I had not engaged with religion. And so he said, well, would you like to learn how to meditate? And my reaction when he told me that was, what? You gotta be kidding me. Sit around and do nothing. How's that gonna help anything? I was doing and more doing. Wanted to find out what else I could do. But I had promised myself that I was going to do anything that he suggested because I was really very unhappy with how I was living. So he gave me a book about meditation, and I went home and read it and tried it out, 5 minutes here, maybe 10 minutes the next day. And after a period of about 2 weeks or so, I went back into his office and I said to him, I don't know where it came from, but I'm happy. And I'll never forget what he said. He pointed at me and he said, it came from you. And it was one of those times where I just completely realized what he said was true and that there was happiness and it came from inside. It wasn't something that I got by doing more and more things. It was letting it emerge. And it resulted eventually in having a spiritual experience of my own. And I will say that it wasn't unlike a rebirth, if you want to use that term, and eventually led me to start going to church. I went to a UU church because I thought that was thought the word universalist sounded like what I really believed now. And then I helped to start a UU congregation in Fremont, which is where I live, and eventually retired from my previous job and decided to go to seminary and become a minister, and been doing this now for this is the 17th year that I'm doing it. So I was previously a software engineer and I worked for IBM, and I was able to retire from that and now have a new career. So I still need to take antidepressants, and I still need to be conscious of when I'm going down and understand what it's going to take me to get better. But I consider myself to be in recovery from depression. So we'll talk a little bit about what a mental health ministry is, and it involves healing the whole person. So yes, the medications were important, but also there were a lot of other things that were important too. And this is a chart from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Association of U.S. government, SAMHSA. And there's a lot of things that are part of a person's life in order for them to recover. Not only is there the spiritual, there's also intellectual, learning things. There's physical, taking care of your body. There's environmental things like being able to go outside, be in fresh air. Financial considerations. There's occupational considerations about doing things that you believe in. There's social considerations about having friends and peers that you can work with. And there's this whole things that make up a person's life. And my message to you, I think, is that people in a congregation can help in the areas here that aren't covered by professional mental health services. They can be friends with people. They can help a person when their life is emerging spiritually. They can have help people understand what their occupational, doing things that are important in their life. There's a lot of things here that roles that people in a congregation can play that aren't covered by professional services. So a mental health crisis is a spiritual problem as well as a psychiatric problem. A person may experience existential doubts about their selfhood, about what is truth, about its meaning, what is love, what is their own personal agency, and it might undermine their faith in divine or their belief in justice. And I've seen a number of studies now where you ask people that have mental health problems and their family members, what is it that helps you cope with your situation? And the thing that comes up as number one is some kind of spiritual practice. So meditation or prayer or music or spiritual direction with a spiritual director, or Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, chanting, spiritual direction in there twice. Something that helps them to cope. And even though, the psychiatric profession from its beginning with Sigmund Freud were very skeptical about religious purpose, it's still the number one thing that helps people. So give you an idea of some of the things that help in recovery. There's the concept of hope. It's mentioned as being the first step in recovering, the fact that you believe that it might be possible for things to get better. And sometimes we need to hold hope for someone if they don't see that there's hope. So just give you a story of my own hospitalization. I was hospitalized in the psychiatric ward, and my doctor at the time said, "Oh, we can help you." And I thought, I'm beyond help. And my family thought, you can get better, you can get better. And I thought, I'm just a burden on them. And then there was another patient who was a patient in the psychiatric ward who had been there for a couple of weeks and was ready to be released. She sat down with me and shared with me how she had been so ill several weeks ago, and working with her doctor, she was able to get better. And when she told me that, it was the first time that I had the thought, maybe there's hope for me. And that was really the start of my recovery. So hope is something that anyone can help to give to someone else. And it's particularly important, I think, when a peer, someone else who has gone through something, speaks to you, because then you're much more likely to be believed because that person has actually been there. There's sort of foundation of all kinds of peer support movements, like Alcoholics Anonymous or any of the other mental health peer support movements that there are. So another really important element is presence. What presence means is that you are with the person, listening to them actively without judgment and validating their feelings, not giving advice, not telling them what to do, but just being there for them. It's really a gift. So let me give you a story from when I was an intern minister. This was in, I think 2003, when I was an intern, just started my internship. And there was one Sunday morning, there are people bustling around the congregation getting ready for the service and so forth. And there's a woman who I knew was really seriously struggling with anxiety. And she came up to me totally frantic, saying, "I'm so anxious. I don't know what to do. Don't tell me what to do, Barbara." And I was thinking, oh my God, what can I do? I'm just a brand new minister. And so I suggested to her that she and I go into the library. There was no one in the library at that time. And we went in the library, closed the door, and I sat there holding her hand. And I was thinking, what can I tell her to do? Oh my gosh, I'm a failure as a minister. I can't think of anything to tell her to do. And after about a couple of minutes, she turned to me and said, "I feel so much better just being here with you." And I thought, oh my gosh, what a lesson for me, just being a friend, just being a presence, letting them know I care. Just sitting there holding her hand, even though I didn't know what to say, was a real gift. And I guess that's something that I would like you to understand is your presence is a gift to someone else, especially not telling them what to do, not telling them that they're crazy, not telling them that no, they're not feeling what they're feeling, or not hearing or seeing what they're hearing and feeling. It's just being there is I mean, it's not going to cure everything, but it's going to be a real gift to that person. And I've learned this same lesson several times in my ministry. Another time there was a woman in the mental health center where I work who was really, I could see her condition was deteriorating, and I know she had been helped by being hospitalized before. And I asked her if she thought maybe it was the right time to be hospitalized again, and she agreed. So I took her to the hospital and helped her fill out the forms to get admitted, and I stayed with her while she was being until she was admitted into the hospital. And a few weeks later, after she was released and doing a lot better, she came up to me and said, "Barbara, I just want to thank you for being with me at the hospital and taking me there and staying there with me while I was admitted. Sometimes that's the only thing that gets me through my day, is to remember how you did that for me." And, wow, what another lesson, and what a gift to me that she gave, at least as much of a gift to me as I was to her. So another element, which I think is really important, is the act of what I call public witness. Many times after I've talked in congregations and told my own story, and sometimes there's someone else, like there was today, that tells their own story in the congregation. I ask people at the end of the service to rise in body or spirit if they or a loved one has lived with a mental health problem. And I've done this now in many congregations, and almost always there's like 80% or more of the people will stand up. And most of them are looking around and saying, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize how you mean your family has it too, or you have it too, or whatever." And then in the coffee hour afterwards, people are talking about it, "Oh, well, my sister had bipolar," or whatever. So it's not a secret anymore when people know that it affects everybody, almost everybody. The people are sitting there in the pews suffering, and many of them suffering silently, and coming to church because they want to get a little hope in their week. So it's okay to talk about it because everybody is affected. So if I've collected over the years a number of things that people have told me that helps them when they're having problems. Professional or peer help, you know, some way to get assistance to know that you can, it is possible to get better. Sometimes that involves medication, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's really hard to find medication for some people. It works differently for everyone just about. And sometimes what helps best is a community of peers or even alternative treatments. Caring for your body. Exercise, boy, if I ever learned that one, that it's important to get outside, get some exercise, some way of focusing your body and your mind on something besides whatever your stressors are. Learning to manage your stress by all kinds of things, well, exercise or sometimes there are medications that doctors can give that can give temporary help for that. Just learning how to, for example, turning off the news if the news is really stressful. Don't have to be plugged into the news or to social media 24 hours a day. Can limit that. Some of that helps with stress. Being aware of your emotions, knowing when, what the sort of the warning signs are that you might be having a problem coming up, and learning for yourself what it is that helps you. Finding a way to enrich your life. And a lot of that is doing something creative, writing, painting, craft work. I'm a weaver. I learned how to weave. That's one of the things that I picked up, and just the creative activity itself is helpful. And then also what I just talked about, engaging with your spirituality, some way of getting some sort of spiritual sustenance for your life. And then what about families and loved ones? They're suffering as well. And they also, in a different way, but they need some kind of sometimes assistance to get over the suffering that they are experiencing because their dear loved one is having difficulties. So professional or peer help. One of the I have the sign here, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, has a program called Family to Family that teaches, it's a peer, families that have been through this are helping other families go through it. It's very helpful for people that have families. Learning how to communicate effectively with your loved one, to know what kinds of ways that you can communicate with them when they're distressed or even delusional. What kind of things can one do to in order to get your point across, and to let them know that you care about them, and helping them to live with their situation. If they're having difficulty with something, try to help them, talk through it or whatever, and helping them live with it, helping them to get out and get some fresh air, helping them to make sure that they eat well. A lot of those things are really important. And then also it's really important to have a life of your own, and not get totally enmeshed in whatever's happening with your loved one. So COVID has exacerbated a lot of these problems. I know the UU Mental Health Network recently did a survey of various UUs and asked them if, you know, what kind of stress they were feeling, and there were a lot of them that were feeling under stress. And we asked them also, how is COVID and the political situation and the situation with racism, how is that all affecting their mental health? And most of them said to a great deal, you know. So there's a lot of this, and it isn't just UUs, it's in society in general. So the things that I think are important is to, you know, accept that fear and uncertainty are normal. You know, it isn't something that you're mentally ill because you're afraid of what's happening. A lot of what's happening, it is normal to be fearful that you need to take care of yourself. You need to wear your masks. All of those things are normal to take care of yourself. Creating new routines for yourself, regular sleep and wake times. Sometimes if we're not working, it's really easy to get really sloppy about this. And creating a routine for yourself that helps out. And then also limiting news and social media to respected sources and individuals, and even limiting how much, when you do it during the day. And then finding humor in every day, having an attitude that there's something that we can find to smile at or laugh on, or can we find something beautiful to notice every day. And also learning how to be non-judgmental and not reactive as much as possible. Learning how to take care of yourself what I call here reinventing self-care. Stay hydrated, eat good things, good food, get outside, do exercise, engage in spiritual practice, and engage with loved ones and your pets. Sometimes people say that what really helps them is their cat or their dog. And then also might think of reframing the whole thing. Think of it as an opportunity to do something that you normally wouldn't have a chance to do, because now here's time and opportunities to possibly do something differently. So talk a little bit about mental health and social justice. There are a lot of things that make it difficult to get good mental health care. Many times there are insurance or money issues. Some people don't have any coverage at all, or if they do, it's inadequate. And then also it's a fact that many practitioners won't take it, and they just expect full payment up ahead without any insurance. Many times they'll give you a receipt to file your own insurance, but they won't take insurance themselves. So it's really, there's a lot of, if people have limited money issues, the problems in finding professional mental health care. And then also there's the lack of the availability of mental health treatment. I know I've heard from a lot of people that, even when they do have insurance, the insurance only insures certain doctors or certain plans, and it's hard when they call all of the names on the list of the plan, they can't find anybody who's taking a new patient. And many times alternative therapies, that sometimes people use are too costly and they're not widely available. There's also cultural linguistics or geographic issues. People that are Black, Indigenous, or people of color, LGBTQ people, teens, or people that don't speak English, I sometimes find it very difficult, or they live in an area where there isn't any. And also, it's important to know that jails and prisons are full of people that have mental health problems. And sometimes I guess I've heard that the Los Angeles County Jail is the major dispenser of psychiatric drugs in the state of California. There's something wrong if, you know, people get put in jail. And it's really sadly true. Often the most troubled people get the worst care because they can't afford it and they can't take care of it first. Many of you may have heard of our Unitarian forebear, Dorothea Dix, who in the mid 1800s was a champion for getting rid of, getting people out of jails and into building hospitals for people with mental health problems. If she came around today, she would probably say the same thing again. You know, it's the, we've come full circle and it's really sad. But I want you to know that there are some low-cost options. There are many fine peer and self-help groups which are free. In fact, the place where I work is free to the people that come there. We're financed by the county of our Alameda County, which is where I live, and the people that come there do not have to pay extra for that. And there are many peer support groups that are free that people can join. I know NAMI has some peer support groups, not only for families, but also for clients that are free of charge. Some local governments have social services that are free or on a sliding scale. There's online support that can be found. And so many of the things that I mentioned back on the other chart that help a person don't have a cost associated with them. So it isn't like it's completely hopeless, because there are things that one can do in the community and find things that are helpful. If you're interested in doing social justice work in the mental health area, there's lots of opportunities for it. I remember when I was first starting out, I asked this one guy, where do you need help? And he said, pick something that you are really, that you really want to work in and you really want to do something, and go ahead and do it, because there's so many areas that need it. There's economic justice issues, abuse prevention, a lot of mental health problems also have, people with mental health problems have a history of being in abusive environments. Trying to make support and treatment more equitable, and help with the mental health system. Many counties have mental health boards, and they're looking for people to be on it. Those kinds of things can be really important in a community. Publicity when there's a problem. I've done this a lot when, writing letters to the editor when I see things in the paper that I think are not either not accurate or blown out of proportion. Doing some sort of direct service, like volunteering somewhere, or getting involved in organized activism. So there are lots of places to help out. And then some of you may know that I recently published a book, was actually published by Skinner House Books, a UU publisher. It's called Held, Showing Up for Each Other's Mental Health. And there's a study guide in it that a congregation could use to be help their congregation study these kind of issues. So I guess I'll stop sharing.